you are with the Mentoring Club community. How do we enable an inclusive workplace culture? And this is our agenda. We'll do a brief background about the Mentoring Club, then we'll dive deep into the topic with Hasan leading us in the discussion, and then we will go to some announcements about what the community activities will be in the next few weeks. First off, we want to definitely mention our volunteers and supporters. It takes a village to run the Mentoring Club as a community of mentors and mentees. And these are the names of the people. These are people who are really embracing the mission and trying to help us to move forward. We have presence in several social media channels. Primary is LinkedIn. And we have Twitter, YouTube. We have a lot of content on YouTube, so feel free to visit that site. And then, of course, Facebook, Instagram, and Clubhouse. We are doing Clubhouse sessions as well. So, what is the Mentoring Club? At the heart of the vision and the mission of the Mentoring Club are passionate, driven mentees. They want to become better leaders, and the community of mentors are there to help them determine, prioritize their goals, identify the skills that they need to develop in themselves, develop those skills so that they can achieve their goals. And the community is global. We currently have over 300 registered mentors and mentees in 6 continents and 41 countries. Our ultimate vision for this community is that as mentees become successful leaders, that they will become mentors to others, and the cycle of giving back will continue without end, hopefully long after I'm gone or we're gone. These are some examples of mentoring relationships that are happening or have happened in the platform. So we have a mentee from California working with 4 mentors from different parts of the world: Czech Republic, Illinois, California, Mexico. We have a mentee from Kenya working with mentors in Uganda and the US. Mentee in India, we're working with mentors in the US. Mentee in China, working with mentors in Australia and the US, and mentee in the Philippines, working with mentors in Canada and the US. So these are the kinds of relationships that are happening currently in the platform. Just to give you a map of our distribution, this is as of December 31, 2020. Our count at that time was 290. So you can see that majority of the community members, mentors, and mentees are in the US. Europe is starting to gain some numbers, as well as Asia. How do we attract people into the community? By sharing with them our leadership core values. The anchor values are trust, leadership, and community. Integrity, honesty, and commitment, we believe, are what make us trustworthy as individuals and professionals. Health, vision, execution are all important values in order for us to become successful leaders. The last grouping, humanity, contentment, family, are the social grounding forces that make up for the community. And at the end of the day, these are the values that make us feel fulfilled and happy. So we're looking for people who share similar values so that we can grow the community in alignment with each other's values. So now for our topic for this session, we are focusing on enabling an inclusive workplace culture, and Hasan will help us understand more based on his experience in diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging.
Thank you for the opportunity. And I know this is evening time, afternoon time, for some people, early morning for some people. So thank you so much for making time for this conversation. Mentoring is also very personal to me. If you ask me or any other person in the whole world, how did they get where they are today? It is because other people mentored them. And I don't believe in a self-made concept, because every step in our journey, someone has put out their hand, someone has guided us, someone has shared that space with us to grow us. So it is also very, very personal to me, the whole mentoring concept. Because if I go back earlier in my career, there were a few mentors who said, why aren't you pursuing this space? And I always thought to myself, I don't think so. I have the skills. And their consistent response was, well, you think you don't have the skills. But if you jump into this work, you will find the skills. And there is not a single opportunity where all the skills match. You make it your own. So mentoring is very personal to me. And that's one of the reasons why I also wanted to try and found this wonderful organization, the Mentoring Club, and the work that they're doing. And there was alignment and became a mentor instantly. So thank you for the opportunity once again. What I'll do is, the topic is very, very clear. It's how do we create inclusive cultures in organizations? And when I say organizations, I mean in your household, it is also an organization. When you go to a grocery store, you experience inclusion, exclusion. That's also an organization. And if you're working in a big organization, 10,000 people, 5,000 people, 500 people, 10 people, all of those are organizations. This is also an organization, the Mentoring Club. So what experiences do we have on a day-to-day basis that create that feeling of inclusion? I'll also try and demystify the word inclusion, but a lot of it will be your help in helping me understand what do we mean by when we say diversity, inclusion, belonging. What are these words? So we are going to co-create those definitions. And I would love for this to be a conversation versus a presentation. So I have purposefully built in pauses in between. We will do some engagement through Mentimeter to create word clouds and learn together as we go on this journey. Meanwhile, you have the chat function. I would love for you to interrupt. If you want to come off mute and share a question, share a thought, please do so. This is a conversation. If you have a specific question that you want to ask based on the content that I will be sharing, use the chat function. I think I have enough people on the call who will help me sort through those questions so we can answer those questions. And we can also make a promise. If there are questions that are still left in the chat that we did not answer, we'll follow up with some responses as well. So give me a thumbs up. How does that sound to everyone? Ready to go? Okay. So let me share my screen and do have a little bit of information that I want to share based on some of the work that I've done so far. What I'll do is a very quick high-level introduction of what this is all about. Then we'll jump into Menti, and I need your engagement. I need your help in understanding what is this topic. Because each and every person, when you ask them diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, they have a definition in their own mind. And there is no right or wrong definition. Of course, there is a definition for this topic, but I also want to understand your perspective of what does it mean to you. And then also the topic of inclusion. We all feel and experience inclusion in very, very different ways. I've been doing this work for almost 15 years, literally across the globe, from Pakistan to Afghanistan to Middle East, Europe, Asia, and then to the US. What I have realized is when you ask, you get a response, and that response is someone's perspective. That's a diverse perspective in action. And if you don't pay attention to what someone is saying, they're sharing their perspective with you, you're not paying attention to the whole person. So that's where I will need your help in crafting what do we mean by DEIB and how does inclusive culture show up in the workplace. I am also a board member for the Academy of Brain-Based Leadership. They do a lot of fantastic research on the neuroscience of inclusion, neuroscience of belonging. So I'll be sharing some research from our partners at the Academy of Brain-Based Leadership. If you haven't checked them out, please do check them out. They're amazing. And we'll keep it less scientific. I'll try to bring it to life from a practical day-to-day interactions that we have and how to demystify the word inclusion, because it is about experiences that we have in a day in, day out relationship as well as conversations. It may also be a phone conversation that you have with your friend where unintentionally you are excluding them. I say the word unintentionally again, because most of the exclusion that happens is not intentional. People don't wake up with the idea that, you know what, today I plan to exclude Hasan, and here is how I'm going to do it. What happens is I am a diverse individual from a diverse perspective. I say something and that lands in a certain way with you and you feel excluded. So let's focus on that too. And I'll share some research there. And then ultimately, we want to understand, how do we do this? How do we understand and nurture a culture of belonging for everyone? What are some of the key takeaways that we can have that you can implement right away? I am centering this on individuals because individuals make up organizations. If each and every one of us makes a promise with ourselves today that, you know what, here is how I'm going to nurture inclusion for person A on this team, see the multiplication effect of that, and the organization will also become more inclusive. Of course, there is the whole structure of an organization, the policies, the processes, the systems. We can talk all day about it. That's what I do for a living. But at the same time, it is a human need to belong. That's why we are all here. We have a sense of belonging to this mentoring club. And that's why we want to come here and listen to other people. So we'll do a little bit of that. And then, as I said, throughout, open for questions, open for thoughts. Let me just pause here for any thoughts, comments, questions.
Question on the chat as to why we hear the word inclusion these days, but not before.
Say a bit more. What do you mean by we didn't hear it before? Like, I would like to understand that first, but I can also share it is a topic that is born out of necessity. Think about it. When you bring so many diverse people together from different backgrounds, US is a very good example. It's a melting pot. You have so many people from so many different parts of the world. And each and every individual is different. I do have a slide which shows the visible and invisible differences. So as an example, in this conversation, I can't see how Liesl thinks, perceives, comes to conclusions, her stylistic difference, language difference, cultural difference. But I'm engaging with her and I'm experiencing difference. When you experience difference, normal, very basic neuroscience response to that is the brain has a threat response to difference, which means I will be very careful in how I engage with Liesl. In the past, how we would do it is if that is a threat, I need to mitigate that threat. When inclusion comes in is, can I be curious about why she is different? What makes her difference? And if you ask, you will realize you will learn so much about her that makes her different. So in the past, we may not have that understanding. We may have seen it as a threat that someone is different from us. Now we have, especially with inclusion and belonging, this work allows us to understand the difference, not only the difference, but be curious about it so that we can learn and grow as an individual too. But I'm pretty sure that does not answer your question, because I still have a question on what do you mean that we did not have that word before? It may be there, but it may be seen differently. So I don't know if you want to put that in the chat, that would help me in understanding where you're coming from.
Well, my question was that back when I was back home, I'm from Venezuela, we never heard of the word inclusion, and pretty much most of my classmates, they were from my own country. There was not this diversity that you're talking about. Then I moved here and suddenly the melting pot, people from other countries, but religious background, and we all have to interact in the workplace. It can be a challenge because I wasn't used to that. So that was a cultural shock for me. We talk about inclusion here, but back home, because most of the people were from my same race and country, we didn't talk about inclusion there, but we talk inclusion about here now, or this is a global trending thing now?
There is difference everywhere. I'll give you a very simple example. Twins, born from the same mother, are very, very different. They share the same DNA, right? But they're different. What I feel is this, the concept originated from US, but it is global. I'll give you another example. I was in the Middle East, North Africa, heading up DEIB for EY. One office, we had 1,500 people, more than 200 nationalities. Almost 80% of the people in the country are expat. 10% is the local population. There is a lot of diversity there. Yet still, you will find a lot of similarities, even between cultures, countries that are at war sometimes. India and Pakistan is a very good example. There are so many similarities. And some of my best friends in the US are from India. And that is a reality. The differences have always been there. We have just discovered how to be inclusive of those differences. And although the journey started from US, and I actively share this, some other parts of the world are much more advanced in their DEIB journey, but they don't call it the DEIB journey. They just call it humanity. They just call it how to be with people and how to create an environment where everyone can be seen, heard, and valued. You don't have to call it DEIB. So there is a lot of learning that we in the US can do from the rest of the world. At the same time, you will find other priorities in other parts of the world where differences are not visible, but they are a priority. For example, language. When you have a workforce that is coming from more than 200 nationalities, what's the language? And how do we eliminate some of the language barriers there? So differences have many shapes and forms, although this is more of originating from the US. But over time, I feel it has become more global in its context. It may look and feel different in different parts of the world, but the concept still stays.
Yeah, it did. We did answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
So John's asked, will you be addressing some of the tough words about DEI that have recently been in the news? For example, some people claim that the Silicon Valley Bank failed because of its DEI initiatives.
The environment is very, very political. So you can swing in any direction you want to. I feel that the topic of DEIB is front and center, especially those organizations that are investing in it. This is the long journey. Change in terms of inclusion does not happen within 6 months. So short term, yes, you can blame DEIB for a number of things, but long term, you will start to see your organization much more representative of the people that we serve. And that is good for business. That's the clear-cut business case. As the world is becoming more diverse, you need more focus on diversity so that you're representing the world. So I don't lean too much into the whole political debate as to where this is going, but everyone has their point of view. I don't think so. That's the reason why it happened with that bank. Okay, so this is the part where I need your help. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and you'll find Menti. I'll give you instructions on how to complete it. But essentially what I'm looking for is your point of view. What do you think? When I say diversity, what comes to your mind? What 2 words describe diversity for you? So what I'm seeing here is culture, awareness, openness. Some of it is going towards inclusion a little bit, but that's okay. Representation is diversity, difference is diversity, celebrating differences is also diversity, empathy, values, openness, tolerance. Some of these are how you become more inclusive. So typically when I do this, I hear race, gender, ethnicity, disability status, veteran status, but I'm also very conscious. I'm doing that more for a US audience. This is a much more global audience. That's why we're getting different input. So if you were to follow through from this, what 2 words would you choose to define inclusion? If diversity is what you said in the previous question, what is inclusion? What 2 words come to mind? Imagine yourself feeling inclusion. How do you feel? What 2 words come to mind? Okay, it is belonging, it is tolerance, it is feeling safe, having accessibility, feeling heard, respected. It's a dialogue that leads to you being seen, heard, and valued. It's a process. Inclusion is a process. It definitely is a process, because you can look at, just as an example, recruitment is a process. How inclusive is our recruitment process? That's embedding inclusion into recruitment. Performance management is a process. How inclusive is our performance management? Exit is a process. You can thread it through from a process perspective, systems perspective. All the systems that you're using are inclusive by design or not? Or do we need to infuse infusion in it? Companionship, listened to, valued. If you look at, there is a theme building here. How much of all of these are directly linked for us to be who we are, which is be human? If you are a good human being, you will demonstrate empathy for others, for yourself. You will demonstrate acceptance for yourself and others. You will value yourself and others. And children get it, and we all got it when we were children. The best role models, the best mentors that we have in our lives are children, because they teach us inclusion every single day. Somehow, when we grow old and we start to work in organizations, we lose our spark on how to be more human, because there is a reason why we are called human beings and not human doings. We keep on doing, and more doing. Sometimes it's just taking a pause and thinking about, how do I be in this conversation? And by being, am I impacting others? Are they experiencing being valued or not? Are they safe in this conversation? Are they feeling respected? Again, the reason why I'm centering it on ourselves as human beings is directly linked to wherever you will work, you will be my ambassador for inclusion. Your behavior will translate into others feeling safe, valued, seen, and heard. And that forms the organizational culture of any organization, big, small, mighty, whatever. It's individuals who treat others with inclusion that forms the culture. Let's go on to the next one. If I were to take it to the next level, oftentimes when I am on panels and sharing this information, people say, well, belonging has got nothing to do with DEIB. Where did this come from? And it's much more squishier as a topic, and it's much more connected to us. So I'm not too sure whether from a process perspective, belonging belongs with DEIB or not. So let me ask you, what 2 words describe belonging for you? Feeling, thriving, accepted, safety. Again, and it's still very, very theoretical, but the moment you feel safe with someone, you feel like you belong in that community. That is your community. And so safety has come up again, and it's becoming a bigger word because more people are recommending. That's how the word cloud works. So thought of addressing that. Accepted, feeling, sharing, thriving. Now, if you were to give me a comment, maybe in the chat, what's the difference between inclusion and belonging? Let me go back and share what you shared for inclusion. This is what you shared for inclusion. A lot of similar themes, but it's level playing, it's process, it's a dialogue. Someone said it's also belonging. That's fine. And this is what you said for belonging. Accepted for who I am. We didn't use that for inclusion. Safety, cared for, support, feeling, sharing, thriving, accepted.
Someone has put, someone cares about my opinion.
So the way I would frame it, very simply put, it's belonging is a very, very personal manifestation of inclusion. It is, like I said, very, very squishy. And that's who we are as human beings. We are very squishy. We have feelings, we have emotions. And so belonging is taking the DEI conversation to the next level, is venturing into who you are as a human being, taking your curiosity to the next level, taking the process and making it more human. So the experience that you have, the lived experience that you have, I value that and I need that from you. Thank you so much once again for your input as we go along. So diversity is a state of being diverse. We have all range of differences. I'll show you a slide on that too. Inclusion is the act or state of including or being included within a group or structure. Belonging and affinity for a place or situation, or as I would call it, it's a very, very personal manifestation of inclusion. It's how I feel when I am with people. So you can easily say diversity is, here is the diversity from a representation perspective that we have. Inclusion is, here is how we will build practices that advance and amplify those differences and value those differences. Belonging is how we will make you feel. So that's the highest level of inclusion, I would say, is belonging. Oftentimes, especially in our DEIB journey, we focus more on the differences that we see. That's the classical iceberg model, where we see ethnicity, gender, race, age, some of the other indicators too. But what we don't see is there is so much diversity that we bring to a conversation that we don't even realize we have. Because an awareness of style would be, for example, I am very linear in my thinking and I'm very direct in my communication, which means for me to structure a conversation, I would like it to be A to B and B to C. and I will ask a very direct question from someone who's going to give me a response based on whatever they think is best. Let's flip that. The person that I asked the question from was very circular in their thinking and very indirect in their approach to communication, which means they go from A to C, C to Z, Z to B, and then come back to A. And they will tell me a story and they will go in circles. I will experience this difference as I think you didn't get my question. So let me interrupt you and ask you the question again. By just doing that, I have dismantled their whole thought process because they think in circles, and their whole communication process because I disrupted their story. They are coming to the point, but I don't have the enough patience to wait because I need a direct response, which has to be linear. That experience in itself is exclusion of the other person. I can't see it till I realize that, you know what, I need to go deep into the iceberg and realize what is my style? How do I communicate? What do I prefer? And is that preference style shared across, or is that the best way of doing things all the time? It's that minor tweak that you do to yourself that creates inclusion for someone else. Let me just pause there for any thoughts and comments.
There's a comment about what happens if you don't have 1 hour to hear the ABC or path.
Especially in the workplace, I have a coworker that she tends to give me 30 minutes of explanation and I just need more like 2. I told her to be brief and she went just nuts. So this is a great, so what should I do with people like that? Because I'm more like, I like a straight, direct.
This is where the concept of mutual adaptability comes in. So now you are more aware. So there are certain things that you can do is how you would ask the question. How would you frame the question for an indirect circular thinker would be different as to how you would frame it normally. Similarly, you have this awareness that you're direct and you need a straight answer. Does the other person have the awareness that they are circular and indirect?
No, she got offended when I told her, please be brief. And she just went into 1 hour speech, like how awful I was to her. Hearing the whole thing to today, again, with the same topic.
So mutual adaptability is heavily dependent on the type of relationship that you have and how deep is that relationship. Because oftentimes it's human nature. We don't like feedback, right? If I trust you enough that your feedback is going to make me better and more successful. Remember, I said, if I trust you enough.
You made a good point because she gave me a lot of feedback. She's really good, excellent. She's the best. And every time I took to her feedback, I write it down and I try to take that into account for my next analysis. But when I gave her only one in 1 year, this woman went nuts. And I have to say, okay, I'm busy now because she got really upset I just told her, please be brief. That was it.
It's a much deeper way of thinking about this whole piece, and it will require further conversation. So happy to spend some more time on it. But I do feel how do we build trust is also very, very different. Because you can have competence-based trust. You're the best person for this role based on our assessment. You get the job, start working, start performing, and I need to see results. The moment you start showing me results, I trust you. Then there is the earned trust, which is give me a reason to trust you, and I'll give you a reason to trust me. And we will keep on doing that over a certain period of time, and we will have deeper trust. So you can give me any kind of feedback, I'll take it, because we have earned each other's trust. So that part of it is also directly tied to what kind of conversation are we having and how to mutually adapt to one another. I think that's a missing skill in just humanity. And we are going more to the extreme of left and right and this way or that way, blue or green and whatever it is, because we are not talking to each other. We are talking at each other. And sometimes that's the core of the issue that we have is we are not listening to what the person is saying. I just want to make my point clear. And that creates that friction. So happy to share more. I think we can have a longer discussion on this too.
Thank you for your answer.
I won't bore you with a lot of neuroscience. 2 very distinct, simple, straightforward examples. The first study is someone was punched in the face while their brain was being scanned. So there is a part of your brain that becomes hyperactive because you've been punched, physically hit. And someone who was in a meeting and there was something exclusionary said. So they went through an experience of exclusion and their brain was scanned. The same part of your brain was hyperactive as if you have been punched in the face. The follow-up study of that is the recall from the punch in the face is lower than the recall of what you said in that meeting. Think about it. Let's pause. How you made me feel, I'll remember for a longer period of time versus the punch to my face. Just think about it. And this is not a promotion to go around and punch people. That is not the case. This is to focus on what do we say to people and what happens in their brain, because they are going to remember it and remember it for a longer period of time versus the physical injury. Fascinating. The second was across ethnicities. There was research on Chinese students and American students, and both these two groups did not have any interaction with one another. And one of the Chinese students was put in front of the American students, and there was a needle stuck to his cheek so that he was given pain, while the American students were scanned. Their brains were being scanned. So there's a part in our brain that deals with empathy, and it did not fire as this Chinese student was experiencing the pain. You would have imagined, you know what, someone is going through pain, we'll have that reaction. But it was not there. So they reversed the experiment and had an American student and Chinese students watching this experiment while their brains were being scanned. Same result. And then what they did was a follow-up study, brought these two groups together. They started working on projects together. They started having fun together, parties together, etc. And they repeated the experiment. This time, in both cases, the part that deals with empathy fired because some of my own was being given the pain, and that someone does not look like me. But emotionally, socially, I have made a connection with them by spending time with them. So I am seeing someone of my own being given the pain, and I can't stand it. What that leads us to conclude is the more we spend time with the difference, the minimized is the difference. You get closer and closer to understand this individual, which takes me back to, are we listening enough? Are we paying attention enough? Are we spending enough time being in conversations with people? Because the more we do that, all these differences will become unified with us understanding where this person is coming from, no matter how different they may be from us. Inclusive leadership, we have heard a lot about it. There are so many models out there. The way I see it is inclusive leadership is human leadership. We all are leaders. We all are humans. And we all have certain skill sets that are unique to us. How often do we use those skill sets is up to us. So the way I define inclusive leadership, and I've done a series on my LinkedIn. If you want to read more about it, you can absolutely go there and read more about it. The way I see it, from the coaching practice that I have seen so many leaders demonstrate some of these skills in different instances in their lives that it became very clear to me that when we say inclusive leadership, here are the 5 qualities that I would say a person should have. And again, there is absolutely no rocket science in this, because this is who we are as human beings. We may have lost our way, or we may over-index on, for example, humility, empathy, compassion. But when you bring all these ingredients together, you create an environment where people feel like they belong. So I'll very quickly, high level, give you an overview, and then we have a series of articles that you can read about in more detail. Courageous is standing for yourself, and more importantly, standing for others. When you see harm, whether it is intentional or unintentional happen in front of you, do you take a stance? Because the moment you take a stance, you are being courageous and you are being inclusive, because you are highlighting a need that someone may be treated in a certain way that shouldn't happen. So that's how I see courage as part of inclusive leadership. Compassion is, do you really care? Are you making a connection because you genuinely care about this individual? Similarly, do you genuinely care what they are sharing, how they are sharing, What's between the lines? What are they holding back? Again, in any situation, compassion always and always wins. If you haven't read the book from Adam Grant, it's Give and Take. Givers are always the receivers in the long run. Takers are always the losers in the long run. Compassion is all about who we are as human beings. And it also sort of takes me back to the mentoring club and the founders. The work that they're doing is very much tied to compassion. It's helping others achieve their goals, connecting people across the globe so we can all benefit and grow each other. How relatable are you? How much do you share in conversations? Is it at a very high level? I often say when I ask people, how are you doing? And they say, good. I can easily end that right there and jump straight to work. But what does good feel like today? What do you mean by good? Say more. The moment I start to do that, I'm deepening my relationship because I know others are saying, great, this is the topic that I want to talk about today. And they're not paying attention to my relatability is taking a hit because I'm not curious about this individual. I'm not paying attention to how they're showing up. I'm not reading their body language in how they're saying, I'm good. So relatability is directly linked. Similarly, we all have a DEIB story inside of us. We all have diverse experiences. My father was in the military. Every 2 years, we would move to a different place, new school, new environment, new neighborhood. Every single time I would feel exclusion and inclusion. What is my DEIB narrative? And how do I share it with others? You will find there will be so many similarities as we start to share our own personal inclusion narrative with others as to what is my stance on DEIB? How do I see it? How do I experience it? And that's all your lived experience. So again, it requires courage for us to do that. Empathetic, very simply put, is paying attention to what is being said and also leveling up our listening, going up to the level of generative listening, where I'm seeking to understand, not being understood. It's not about me, it's about you. And when I do that, the biggest difference between that is it's not I sympathize with you, I'm sorry for you. It's not that. It's can I feel what you're feeling? Can I connect with your inner self as you're sharing an experience with me, how does it resonate with me? And then being very, very careful in not jumping into solutions for people because they all have their own solution. The fact is, are you paying attention and listening to what is being conveyed and what is not being conveyed in conversations? The last one is being humble. We all make mistakes. How many times I would ask, have you heard CEOs come on stage and say, today I'm going to talk about all my failures in life? Think about it. Big stage, all 1,000 people from the company there. CEO walks up, opens up and shares the keynote is all about failure. Because success happens because we fail. And being humble about sharing where we fail. Bring it to diversity. I failed in diversity because of I said this to someone and I learned that's not appropriate to say this individual. I failed, I acknowledge, and being humble about it. And also humility means your focus is not on you. The focus is on the other person. Sometimes this is also cultural. I was being shortlisted for a global role. And third round, the recruiter said, they want to hear what you did as an individual. You keep on talking about your team. And I said, do you see the difference here? It is I versus we, which is I am nobody without my team. There is a phrase in Africa, Ubuntu, I am who I am because of who we are. Because it's never about me as an individual. But we also know we operate in a very individualistic society, which is all about me as an individual, my values, my thoughts, my authenticity. But we are all part of the larger piece, larger jigsaw in the puzzle. We just have one piece of that jigsaw. How will it fit in? And how do we become more humble in how we engage with others? So there are some additional resources. I think we will share the presentation, Liesl, afterwards. So you can watch some videos. There's some thought leadership as well that we can share. Let me just pause here again for any questions.
Thank you so much, Hasan, for sharing those thoughts with me. But I met Hasan through the magic of LinkedIn quite a few years ago. We had some really nice interactions online and on the phone, which I still remember today. Hasan really kindly shared his lived experiences with me, which I really wanted to say thank you personally as well. It has been a long time. But I remember 3 words from those interactions: lived experience, belonging, and disruption. Those were the 3 words that have still stuck to me. It's the first time I've ever heard those words. And I'm also conscious I'm the person, Hasan, that goes round and round in circles before I ask the question. But I know that you like it linear. So my question to you is that how do you really break barriers in creating an inclusive workplace culture through disruption?
Thank you so much. You're so kind. And I still remember our conversation. We need to have more. So I'll be looking forward to that. I think there are 2 ways. The first is the hard one, which is converting every single person, 1 person at a time, 1 conversation at a time, is to really understand what is in it for them when it comes to DEIB. Again, the focus is not on me, not on the practitioner, it's on you. And how do you connect with DEIB? And what I have found is every person has a connection. Our framework, it may not fit in it. For example, someone might not have any connection with race, LGBTQ+, disability, veteran status. Where do I start the conversation? It may be style, it may be language, it may be culture. That's what they care about. But I also want them to care about all the other things because we know we have underrepresentation, right? But that's a journey that I need to take them on for them to see what they don't see right now. But I can't start there because I need to fulfill their need right now, which may be different. The second part of it is finding organizations that want to do the work, not the performative work, the real work. Because every individual who joins an organization wants to see, do they have representation of people who look like me? Do the senior leaders care about DEIB? And do they have the systems in place? Typically, the first one is addressed through recruitment. So organizations spend a lot of time in recruiting diverse candidates. So people check the box, they have it. Leaders have made some statements about it, check the box, they are good, let's go in. And the part that is more systemic and more disruptive is optimizing, going deeper into a recruitment management system and looking for gaps in inclusion or belonging. Going deep into performance management and understanding where are the gaps, who is being promoted and why. And do you see representation there? Are you building a pipeline of leaders that is much more representative of the demographics? And then the last part is also exits, is who's exiting the company and what was their lived experience while they were with us, because they are carrying that lived experience to other organizations. So you can look at it from a systems perspective, so systemic way of doing that disruption within each and every system that touches people in an organization. And then at the same time, you can also look at, is the leadership there and they believe in it? And do they have the right representation from an organizational perspective? But doing this work for the last 15 years, it's very clear to me, it's a long-term journey, and organizations that invest in it in the long term get the benefit.
Thank you, Hasan. Thank you for those thoughts. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Connect with me on LinkedIn, reach out, happy to help, happy to answer any question you have around DEIB. And once again, thank you for spending your time with me and going on this journey. Grateful to the Mentoring Club for having me. Back to you, Lisa.
Thank you very much for that, Hasan. So I'm just reflecting in my head the many things that I still have to do to improve on how to understand others better. Definitely, there's more work for me in that respect. We'd love to see all of you again and invite other people to join us as we move along this journey of trying to get mentors and mentees together all over the world. Leslie?
Thanks, Lisa, and thanks for everyone being here today. Just to talk about some of the announcements coming up. One of the, I suppose, a really sort of a significant one, an important one for us that we want to share is our new lead mentoring program consulting services. We've assembled a team of diverse, experienced mentors and a group of diverse consultants to work with organizations and companies who really believe in mentoring. And so LEAD, as you can see on the screen there, our guiding principles are that mentoring is about, and the work we do with companies is about helping to leverage talents, to empower people, to accelerate careers and to deliver success. We really want to work with companies that know that mentoring is going to make a difference and want to establish a program, which we help you with, to put mentoring in place so that your people grow and develop. Ways in which we do that in terms of a process that we follow. There are 3 stages that we work through with you as a company. We talk through and work through a needs analysis stage. So stage 1, I won't talk through all of those points. Stage 2 is where we help you actually implement the program. So that's the very active part of mentors and mentees coming together and communities of practice happening and group mentoring. And then at stage 3, the retrospective. So a really important part of the process of program design and implementation is doing the reflection, doing the reporting, and thinking about how has this program worked and what are we going to do? How does it look going forward? So as a group of consultants and our mentors, we work with you in all of these stages so that that program is absolutely sustainable and really, really works in terms of what you're wanting mentoring to do in your company to support your people. Our team, myself and Liesl and Hong, who is also here today, and also Joram and Caroline. So there are 5 of us who are the sort of the consulting group. And then we have, as I said, our experienced mentors who are part of this group as well, who will come in and provide some mentoring support and run group mentoring and those sorts of things in your program. And as you can see, we've all had varied but extensive experience in terms of years in mentoring and learning and development and all of the areas that are actually really important and quite key when you're actually setting up a program and a mentoring program specifically. Other announcements, Hike With Us. So the Mentoring Club has a lot of different activities that go on. Hike With Us is one of them. And as you'll see, it's Mentors and Leaders Hike, and that's happening at 7 a.m. Pacific time on April the 8th, which is Saturday, and starting at the Dish in Stanford. I'm from New Zealand, so I'm reading that and I'm hoping that everyone who is in the US understands where that is, because I don't. Another activity coming up is Lead From Where You Are. The Mentoring Club is very active on Clubhouse, and so this is an event that's coming up on Clubhouse in the discussion room on Wednesday, April the 12th at 9 a.m. PT time. So you'll see that Joram and Caroline, who are 2 of our consulting group members, they will be moderating that session with the guest speakers. And Hasan, you're there again. It's good to see. In terms of other announcements, we're always looking for mentees to become, like really, really encouraging people to be mentees with the Mentoring Club, just the benefits that you will receive from being paired with a mentor. We have quite a large pool of mentors. Some of the stories, if you go onto the website, some of the stories that mentees share there will really give you some encouragement that if you're looking for some support in your leadership development or your career development, being a mentee is such a rich experience, and being a mentee in the Mentoring Club will certainly give you that rich experience. Also, always looking for mentors. So become a mentor with the Mentoring Club. I'm a mentor, a volunteer mentor. As a mentor, there's just so much that we can give and share, and that whole intention of wanting to support someone else, the mentee, along their journey. So very, very interested and very keen for people to register with us and become a mentor with the Mentoring Club.
As you probably know, we are a nonprofit organization. I set up the Mentoring Club as my give back. Anybody who can help us reach out to organizations with philanthropic initiatives, we would be very grateful for that, as well as individuals who you think believe in mentoring. Please point them to our direction as well. We'd be happy to discuss more about what we're doing so that they could decide if this is an organization that they would like to support from a financial standpoint. Thank you, Leslie.
We are always looking for volunteers, so for you to join the Mentoring Club community as a volunteer. And as you'll see there are a number of roles or volunteer roles that we're keen to fill. Extra people who can give some support and some of your time in these areas would be really, really good. And if you are interested in and you see that you would like to be a volunteer with the club, then please email Liesl, which her email is there at the bottom. So events and program managers, fundraising programs, co-leads, community managers, grant writers, digital marketing manager, social media marketing assistants, SEO specialist. all of these people, all these volunteers, ensure that the mentoring club really works really well. We're able to do and offer what we set out to do as the mentoring club. So please do email Newsela if you're interested in being a volunteer with our community. Lastly, feedback is a gift. So please give us your feedback on the session today and anything else that you'd like to give us feedback on around the mentoring club and our activities and what we do. Because as we all know, when we get feedback from others, it gives us that opportunity and that information to review what we're doing, to reflect on what we're doing, that we're doing things well and that are working, to improve or to adjust and adapt if we need to. So your feedback is vital. So please do give us feedback. Thank you. Lisa, I'll hand back to you.
Thank you, Leslie, for doing that and for helping me out with this session. Again, I'd like to thank all of you who attended. If you think that this session would be helpful to anyone that you know of, we have a recording of it. Eventually, we will have it posted on YouTube on the Mentoring Club page on LinkedIn. You can point your friends, colleagues, or even managers to the recording if you think that this would add value to your organization. And lastly, thank you very much, Hasan, for opening up my mind more. As I said, there's still a lot more that I thought I was doing a good job already, but there's still a lot more that I really have to do based on data and experiences that you have shared. So thank you very much.
Just very quickly, yes, thank you, Hasan. I found that exceptionally thought-provoking. And I really liked that, having to think about the difference between inclusion and diversity, rather than we sort of sometimes feel that they're sort of just put together in this pot. It's like, oh, it's all of these things. So it was really nice. It was good to get some thinking around that there are the differences in that, and then actually how they can come together at the same time. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that's a sign of curious, inclusive leaders who always want to learn and go to the next level. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, everyone. Take care and enjoy the journey.